Hey, what's up, friends and family? This is Tony, and here's my take of the day on this whole Prada figurine issue. They had a $550 keychain that they took off the market after a young woman in New York City, a civil rights attorney, I believe, saw this blackface. So, real quick, I want you all to take a look at this. What does this look like? What just these are the figurines. This is what was in New York City. This is what the young lady walked by. What does it look like to you? For some, it might seem harmless, depending on your race. For others, if you're black, if you're like me, if you studied the history of African Americans and Jim Crow and slavery and just blackface, it's blackface. It looks like blackface. It looks like the caricatures that white men and women used to do when they would paint their faces black and wear really red lipstick to basically paint themselves and look like they were black people, and that's pretty much what it is. What's my take on it? I think it's terrible. I think it's honestly terrible. The fact that Prada pulled the entire collection of figurines tells me that they also thought it was terrible as well. Vox put up an entire article. Basically, the woman who identified these, her name was Chinyere Ezi, and she posted on Facebook, "I don't make a lot of public posts," she said, "but right now I'm shaking with anger." She wrote, "Today, after returning to New York City after a very emotional visit to the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture, including an exhibit on blackface, I walked past Prada's Soho storefront only to be confronted by the very same racist and denigrating blackface imagery." And then she said she entered the store with a coworker only to be assaulted with more and more bewildering examples of this Sambo figure. And if you don't know, the Vox article talks about the story of Little Sambo. Was an 1899 children's book illustrated by a Scottish author named Helen Bannerman. The protagonist has deep black skin, oversized red lips that distort and exaggerate African facial features, much like in minstrel performance. The figurines Ezzy photographed at Prada also have cartoonishly large lips and sable black complexions, and it's bad. I went to another Instagram post by a group called Diet Prada. I guess they follow a lot of Prada products and things like that. But this is basically what something like it, this is blackface in all of its glory. Like there's really no escaping it. This is another one that they use, which actually looks like it's supposed to be Jamaican. Like I just don't get it. So anyway, Prada responded. They put out an apology, I guess, of sorts. Basically, what they said was Prada Group abhors racist imagery. The Prada Malia, which is the name of these keychains or these animals, are fantasy charms composed of elements of the Prada oeuvre. They are imaginary creatures not intended to have any reference to the real world, and certainly not blackface. Prada Group never had the intention of offending anyone, and we abhor all forms of racism and racist imagery. And this interest, we will withdraw the characters in question from display and circulation. And so, a few things about the statement that Prada made. If this is a product of their imagination and fantasy, y'all have some pretty effed up imaginations and fantasy if this is what you guys think is acceptable. Secondly, and this is something that the woman that saw this brought up in the Vox article, namely, do any black people work at Prada who could have reviewed this? Maybe it was just so far beyond their imaginings that this could be, seen as anything related to blackface or racist. They didn't think they needed to view this with anyone else. But I also, when I see images like this, of Black Pete, which is still celebrated in Amsterdam or in Belgium or whatever places that it's celebrated in Europe. When I see things like this, I'm hard pressed to believe that they don't see that this is racist, that somebody didn't think that this was an issue. And we just keep seeming to have these issues over and over again. I talked about, I don't know if it was Prada that also had the same issues in China. There was another high fashion, clothing fashion house that had this issue. And then you also had H&M earlier this year with the coolest monkey in the jungle and the black kid, and even Megyn Kelly recently, who thought it was okay to dress up as blackface. Like, I'm not sure if people understand that this is 2018, and whether you say that people are oversensitive or not, racism is racism, and insensitivity is insensitivity. And you're just gonna have to get with the program, get on the bus, and deal with it. You're gonna have to deal with it, because guess what? You're not living in a monotone culture anymore. This is a global culture, a global society where there are people of all walks of life, and you cannot offend them. Not only can you offend them because it's not going to look good, but it's going to hurt your bottom line at the end of the day. So again, I just, my take is this was a terrible idea on Prada's part. Diet Prada woke up on the morning of our 4th birthday to some news about our namesake, Prada. The Prada Malia collection, produced in collaboration with 2x4 Inc., features fantasy, lab-created, in quotation, animals. According to a press release about the collab, the creatures mix up the codes of the house into their features. Many are comparing Otto, which is, I guess, the name of this monkey, a resulting mutation of one of Prada's oldest mascots, the monkey, to Little Sambo, a children's book character from 1899, who exemplified the Pickaninny style of blackface caricature, though other examples from as early as 1769 can be found. The exaggerated stereotypes propagated racism freely back then, but it's apparent that the legacy of the harmful imagery still affects how we contextualize racism today. This is surprising from Prada, who's known, at least recently, for the inclusivity of their casting, propelling then unknown models like Anup Jai and Jordan Dunn into near supermodel status. Not to mention casting Naomi Campbell in that 1994 campaign at a time when it was generally deemed risky to cast people of color in international luxury campaigns. Recently, they mounted the Black Image Corporation, an exhibition highlighting the importance and legacy of black creators in American publishing and photography in both Milan and Miami. Representation is important, but understanding how to navigate the nuances of how the world perceives racism is even more so, and I think that's the crux of this. It's great that Prada is doing all of these awesome and amazing things, and I'm glad that I'm reading this so that people can know that Prada has done these awesome and amazing things. But there are so many nuances. I'm telling you, and I don't feel bad, but at the same time I do. It's almost like walking in a minefield. It's like walking on eggshells. I talked about this a few videos ago with PETA coming out with not being speciesist towards animals. We are living in an age where we have to walk on eggshells to make sure that we don't offend somebody. And it's sad, but it's true, but it's also necessary, because we as a civilization need to evolve to a point where we can get past offending people for how they look, how they talk, how they maybe not act, but where they're from. Maybe not if they're animals, but there's certain things that we need to get past if we are to ever really succeed as a human race and get past our hatred and our just misunderstandings of each other. And part of that is understanding what triggers certain people. It's not a bad thing. We look at triggers to other people as bad things. Oh, that triggers you. Well, maybe you're weak or something. No, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, and it's something that we all need to learn, and it's something that we all need to learn how to cope with and deal with and find those nuances around. So I'm glad that they said that. So representation is important, but understanding how to navigate the nuances of how the world perceives racism is even more so. One thing is pretty clear, though, given recent scandals. Luxury brands operating on a massive global scale need more systems in place to avoid controversies like this. A suggestion for now: more diversity on a corporate level for positions that actually hold power in decision making and brand imaging. And again, this is highly important. Prada, as Chinyer Easy noted, they have no African American on their board, and there's only one person of color on their board of directors. So again, more diversity is needed on all these levels. If you're global, if you're a global company and you should have global representation, point blank, period. If you're some, company up in, somewhere in Madison, Wisconsin or whatever, where it's predominantly white, sure, you can go ahead and have an all white board if that's all you're serving. But when you start branching out and you're starting to serve other people, and you're starting to brand, and you got to, otherwise it's going to hurt your bottom line at the end of the day. I mean, it's really simple business at the end of the day. Prada issued a swift apology on Twitter and are in the process of removing the products from display and sale, but no mention on Instagram yet. So again, there are many thoughts on this from the Diet Prada folks. It's funny that someone said, "Notice it's white people that are mad as F. That's it." Someone else said, "Wow, the same thing happened to Mochler a few years back when they collabed with Friends with You to make jackets out of their characters, yet it still came off as unintentional blackface. I'm happy that Prada took everything off, but the situation could have been easily prevented, just like with Mochler." Someone else wrote, "The opinion of one mixed person. I just showed this image to my black American mother with Mississippi lineage, and she saw an offensive image. No one is discounting your mixed opinion, but your comment is eerily close to invalidating the experience of many a Southern black person who sees a hateful mockery with this item." So again, just test your product with, if it's global, test it, because you never know who's going to pick it up, who's going to see it, and how it might be perceived. That's the moral of the story. So yes, my take is we should take this seriously, and we should continue to work together to eliminate things like this, because somewhere someone in Prada probably deep down might not realize it, but has subconscious racist underpinnings when they were designing this. It might not have been explicit. We all have our implicit nuances that come out in weird and radical ways, and we need to be aware of those, and we need to be aware and know how to navigate those. Anyway, that's all I've got. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I will see you all tomorrow. Peace out. Bye.